Housing associations are not-for-profit businesses. Now, a phrase commonly used in the sector to describe itself is businesses with a commercial head but a social heart. But whilst different people will understandably place different emphasis on different parts of that statement, there's no shying away from the fact that today, some of these organisations are now big enough to be listed on the 150 FTSE companies across the country by turnover, if they had shareholders and if these shareholders realise a profit, which of course they don't. But to provide a bit of scale and context for some of these organisations we're now talking about, it's perhaps worth noting that Manchester United Football Club currently turn over about £780 million a year, which, although a lot of money, is slightly less than, for example, Places for People Housing Association, who turn over about £850 million a year. And the largest housing association by turnover, London and Quadrant, or L&Q as it's known, now turn over some £1.1 billion every year. That's even more than conglomerates like the Restaurant Group plc, who own, amongst other brands, Wagamama. And who doesn't love a chicken katsu curry? Collectively, across the entire country, housing associations make a significant contribution to the economy, as they're responsible for about 148,000 jobs across the nation as a whole. Some organisations have just a few people working for them, but others have thousands. And if the affordable housing sector is serious about attracting the very best people so that we can continue to deliver our mission, then they need to be good employers and make sure that what goes on inside their own four walls is just as ambitious as what they have intended for everybody else's. Now, most housing associations will pretty much have the same departments within them. It depends slightly on where they are and what they choose to focus on and cover, and of course how big they are. But by and large, each association is likely to have similar teams doing similar kind of things. Now, this list isn't exhaustive, but just to give you an idea of the kind of things they tend to cover, and in no particular order, there are surveyors, account managers, business change experts, communications teams, call centres, customer services, community programme managers, developers, house sales teams, accountants, financial services, governance experts, repairs teams, safety officers, estate managers, the IT crowd, HR, facilities, and safeguarding teams, of course, and in some places, even public affairs teams as well. Now, how all these then fit together will be a matter for each executive team to decide by themselves, but what normally happens is that each of these teams will be grouped into similar departments, working in areas where there's overlap. So you'll have, for example, a customer services director and a finance directorate and perhaps a development directorate. And each of these will be headed by an executive director who, along with the chief executive, form what is often called the executive management team, or EMT for short. So what does their job look like within the organisation?
So a housing association, senior team, leadership team, exec team, whatever you call them, will always have a chief executive, so somebody who is responsible directly to the board for the performance of the organisation. There'll always be someone who is responsible for finance, so sometimes a finance director, but they may also have responsibility for things like the IT department or performance or the insurance or the commercial arm or whatever else. There'll always be someone who's responsible for housing, day-to-day operations, the teams where the calls come into, the repairs are logged with, the asset teams who are planning what needs to be done on a cyclical basis, fire safety teams. They will usually be lodged with a kind of housing, neighbourhoods, operations kind of person. If they're a developing association, and very many associations do continue to build, there'll be a development director who's responsible for looking for new sites, delivering new schemes, selling any kind of shared ownership if people have a sales team. And often you'll have comms or culture or HR represented on a senior team, not always. Some people will have legal representatives on their senior team, again, not always, but those are the kind of functions that usually sit around the top table.
It's actually quite rare that you have an issue that is simply and easily slotted into one division, so actually making sure that we're working constructively between different divisions and different elements of the business so that we're successful. And then, I chair a fortnightly meeting of the group, where we go through and make decisions about the business, where it's going, what it's doing. They're operational decisions. So it's about working with individuals, making sure that we're getting the most out of them, making sure that they're motivated, working collectively as a team to make sure that those things that fall between different directorates is working effectively, and then making sure that we're really making progress and making progress at pace.
The executive management team and the chief executive are then ultimately responsible to the board. Now, boards often only meet a few times a year, with the average being between 4 and 6 meetings. But board members tend to undertake strategy days and subcommittees and a whole host of other obligations as well, including meetings with the chief exec. Because ultimately it's them, it's the board members who are the ones who are responsible for the overall governance of the housing association and their homes.
The board is there to hold us to account, predominantly the executive team and I suppose predominantly me. And so the board is there to keep oversight of our day-to-day business. But more importantly, the board is there to shape the strategy and the future strategy for the organisation. And then it's exec's job to think about how we put that in practice.
The role of the board really is of independent scrutiny and oversight of what we do. So it's important that we have the expertise on the board that allows them to do that. So sort of detailed financial scrutiny of what we do, performance management of what we do, making sure that we stay the right side of compliance and that we are, and they set the strategy.
The relationship between the chief exec and the board should be a relationship of partnership. Everybody should be delivering for the organisation, pointing in the same direction, but doing different things. So it's the job of the chief executive, they're hired and fired by the board, to work with them to ensure that the mission of the organisation continues to be delivered, that the vision of the organisation is clear and that is pulled together in a strategic plan, be that 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, that's up for the board and the chief executive to work together on, and that the values of the organisation run from the top to the bottom like a stick of rock.
I think what's really important in the management of the organisation is that as an executive and as a leadership team, we keep the board informed about what's going on so there's no great surprises.
It's also the responsibility of the chief executive and the leadership team to assure the board that they are complying with all of the laws, all of the regulations, all of the promises that you make when you lend money from banks, which are called covenants, that all of those things are done, and that's about making sure that controls are right and assurance is given. But it's basically, at its very basis, it's about delivering the organisational aims. It's about making sure those are done within the rules of the land and the regulations that are given. But it should be a relationship of support and challenge. You've got to make sure that you're supporting your team to deliver, but you're really challenging them to live the values, to deliver better and to get on.